The impacts of the Australian plague locust all pan around the density, the sizes, what you come in as in a swarm situation. But what we see here now, if we had a high density swarm come in here, they'd just mow this country down. So we're trying to protect an influx of swarm locusts from pastures and cropping country. The Australian plague locust adults grow 25 to 44 millimetres long. Their body colour is grey, brown or occasional green, often with a pale stripe down the middle of the back. The hind wing has a transparent black spot at the tip and the hind legs have red shanks. Adults make short flights just above the grass. The first signs you're going to see on your place if you've got locusts is you wake up in the morning, the night before you had nothing, you wake up next morning and all of a sudden you've got a crop full of big APLs, and they could come in overnight. As I explained earlier, on the prevailing wings, they can move in and they can travel up to 700,000 kilometres in one flight path, and that's depending on a lot of variables. So the very first sign, it could be one afternoon, there's nothing, all of a sudden next morning you can be inundated. So, but that's at the adult stage. But at the early stage, when after the adults do go through their cycle, breeding cycle, you might come up with finding out little egg beds around your place. So if you start looking for egg beds and you haven't seen them, or haven't seen egg bed, but you look for various signs, and the signs could well be ibises, could well be kite hawks, could well be crows. You might look at the distance, because you're not going to cover your whole country, because it's a vast area to looking at. So what you look at is your various signs. Go and have a look at that particular area. Find out, oh my God, what are them ibises doing over there? That's a good indication. If you have locusts in the area, you can pick them up in an early stage. If you've got kite hawks flying around, yeah, one or two is probably not significant, but when you start building up numbers of your bird life, then you're actually building up potentially insect problems that you may not normally have had previously. Who's responsible to control the locust plague? Well, we all have our responsibilities under the GBO, so it's a general biosecurity obligation. It starts from the landholder initially. We have state government, we have local authorities. We all have our little bit to do control, offer assistance and advice. And when it gets out of control, that's when you start forming committees and contingency committees, so that you can bring in resources, bring in personnel, and if in the event that there's needs to be funding, it can be looked upon. But we all have a responsibility, and it starts at the landholders and it fluctuates through. I often get a question about how would you control locusts on your property. Well, I'd suggest there's several ways you can do it, and that's at the early stages, at the nymphal stage. You could do that with a spray rig, a boom spray. You could do it with a knapsack if you've got a small area like a band's. You could certainly do it with a quick spray or a power spray unit. I've even seen people do it, and have done it myself, with a knapsack, just a 5 litre knapsack, by creating your mixture to control it. But bear in mind, it all is governed on the label, and that's the most important part of controlling anything and using any insecticides, is reading the label, understanding what it can do, and understanding what you can do to be able to use it effectively. Landholders can undertake aerial control on their property. However, aerial spraying is considered the last method of control. Aerial spraying is also subject to meeting strict environmental and operational requirements. For more information, contact the Australian Plague Locust Commission on 1800 635 962 or your local government, or visit biosecurity.qld.gov.au. locust.au.